Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time watching, my name is Boainzem, and on this channel I talk about a financial independence journey as a family in a way to keep myself accountable and also to kind of share some of the strategies that we're using on the journey. I started the channel about a month ago and I just realized that we're almost at 400 subscribers. So thank you to everyone who has been watching, who has liked and shared, and all the engagement. I really appreciate the input. And if you haven't subscribed already, now's the time to do it. Just take a minute, click the subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell button if you haven't already, so that you can have alerts whenever I post new videos. I've had a really good week. I feel very relaxed, and I hope that all of you are doing very well also. Today we're going to be talking about budgeting. And budgeting is one of the tools that I mentioned in the previous video as one of the strategies that you can really use to have control over your money. And I wanted to spend some time, just spend a few minutes going into detail about some of the things that were found to work, and ways in which you can start to really be disciplined. So overall, there's a lot of temptation out there, right? There are a lot of things that are trying to take your money away from you. For a lot of us, by the time your paycheck hits your bank account, within a few days, your bank account is back to looking like you don't have a job, because basically everything has gotten spent. And sometimes it's really hard for you to figure out where the money is going, because there are a lot of us who feel like, well, I think I'm pretty disciplined. I don't spend money frivolously, and yet I don't know where my money goes. I think having a budget sort of liberates you from that, because it gives you a lot more control over what you're spending money on. And honestly, it helps you to not have to think about it on the spot, because everything is automated. Like, before you get any money, you know exactly where it's going to go, and you're not left like thinking about what happened to it. This is something that I've found to work very well for me. Before my paycheck comes, or before any extra income, if I'm getting a bonus check from somewhere, comes to me, I already have earmarked it. And that really helps with staying on track, because then there's really no room for temptation, because by the time the check comes, you already know where it's going, right? I'm not going to go blow it on something that I didn't want to and then later on regret it. The one good thing about budgeting is that it's not like it's stopping you from enjoying your life. The goal here is not to like make you miserable and to count every single penny. It just is a way to like give yourself freedom and give yourself permission to spend, because every other thing has been taken care of. So basically, the two big things for me with budgeting are automated, so that you don't have to think about it. You don't need a lot of self-control in the moment, because you've already done the work ahead of time. And then secondly, try to work with the budget and make it fit your lifestyle, make it fit your personal needs. I thought about coming up with a template for this, and maybe I'll do that in the future. But today I really wanted to just focus on establishing that each person's budget is going to be different, because we're all in different places in our lives. We all have different incomes, and you have to allocate what you're getting to fit the different things that you're needing. Now, that said, I will be talking about some of the categories that I've found to, send money to on a general basis. And everyone can kind of ameliorate and fix that to meet their specific life situation. And I feel like this topic is particularly relevant now, with everything that's going on in the world. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of confusion. A lot of us are stressed out because we don't know what we're going to do about the next few months, or leading up to next year. Who knows how long this is going to last, right? I'm not saying that a budget will magically give you money that you don't have, but a budget helps you manage the little that you do have. And it helps you just have a feeling of control, because sometimes a lot of the frustration comes from, or a lot of the stress comes from, this feeling that everything is unraveling. But if you're able to just sit down, take a piece of paper and a pen and write down the categories that you absolutely need to take care of, and then allocate the amount of money that you would need to take care of those things to those various categories, then it gives you some semblance of control, right? And that kind of brings your blood pressure down a little bit. At least that's worked for me, and it's worked for a lot of the people that I know. Like recently, one of my sister friends called me and she was scared that she might get laid off. And it just took a few minutes for me to like run down through her finances and be like, okay, what do you have saved? What are you expecting to get in the worst case scenario if you do get laid off? You know, what are you going to get from unemployment? How can you save that? And how can you stretch that out over a period? And what did we use to come up with that reassurance? Her budget. Because I said, well, how much did you spend on this? How much do you spend on that? Well, this is how much you spend monthly. And so you'd be able to take care of all of that. So that kind of simple example just, gives you a feeling of control, which is a lot of what we need to keep hope alive. So if you take nothing from this video today, my goal with emphasizing that we get a budget is that you get back control of your life. Now, the one thing that I would point out though is that sometimes it takes you a few iterations to figure out exactly what a good budget is for yourself, because sometimes you overestimate certain areas or you underestimate other areas. But once you've had your budget for a few months, you can track your expenses and see how what you're actually spending lines up with what you have projected, and then try to make ameliorations or try to make corrections in those different areas. So if you budgeted too much for food, but maybe you underestimated how much electricity was going to cost, after about 3 months, of tracking how you're actually spending, you can be able to try to fix up the areas that don't exactly line up with your reality, so that your budget more accurately reflects your actual lifestyle. So again, this is something that I think is a tool that all of us can use, regardless of whether you make $100,000 or 20 grand. It's really critically important that you have a budget so that you're staying on top of things and you're really telling your money where to go instead of the other way around. Now, there are two ways in which people typically make their budgets, right? There are two schools of thought. Some people want to do like your every dollar budget. And then there's some of us that like a little bit more flexibility. And so what are those two? You can kind of pick and choose for whichever one works better for you, for your personality, and for your family. The first one being the every dollar budget will just mean that you take your paycheck, or you take how much money you're expecting to get every month, and you write down every single thing that you plan to spend money on and break up that amount of money into the various different categories. And what that allows you to do is to really keep track of every single dollar that you're spending, so that, you have this coming in. You cannot afford to spend more than what you're coming in, because otherwise you're living beyond your means, and that's just a setup for trouble. The way that I prefer to do it is to say, well, I like a little bit of freedom, right? So I'm going to put my buckets, larger buckets, and then have a little bit extra that is miscellaneous, and have a little bit extra that is just my pocket money. So if you think about it in that school of thought, the way that I typically do my budget is I come up and I say, well, the very first thing that's going to come out of my paycheck is my savings. And what that means for me is, because I'm the one doing the work, it's really important to me to pay myself first. So I start out, and first off, I pay put money into my retirement accounts, because those are pre-tax and those get cut out of my paycheck before I even see the money. And then Uncle Sam takes his share. And then when the rest of the money comes to me, I now put money in my after-tax savings. And depending on what stage you're in life, this can be you saving towards a specific goal, or it can be you building an emergency fund, or it can be you saving up or investing in after-tax investments, right? Now, after savings, I typically would put aside money for our living expenses as a family, right? And this generally includes, first of all the house expenses. So that includes your mortgage or rent, which is a huge chunk of your expenses usually. And then it also includes your utility bills, right? Think electricity, water, internet, cable, if you have cable, and things like that would allow your house to run smoothly. Beyond that, you also want to take care of transportation costs, right? So your car payment, if you have one, car insurance, cat maintenance is helpful to keep aside money towards that so that you're not cut in a bind. And then also gas. Or if you live in a city where you commute, then that would basically you would be looking at your train costs or bus costs, depending on what the case is, or Uber costs, as the case might be. And then you also have your cell phone bill and basically the other things that are necessary for you to run your life, right? So these are essential costs. For those who have kids, things like daycare, children's kids' clothes, or whatever you want to fit into that bucket are all essential needs. So you want to really go down and make a list of what all of those are and come up with estimates of them based on how you think your life is going to function. And then as time goes on, you can kind of ameliorate and fix up those particular estimates that you made. Beyond our essential costs, we also have like a little bit extra for miscellaneous, just because we like to have a little bit of freedom in the budget in case in a particular month something comes up that we were not expecting. We're not scrambling because our budget is, allocated to the last dollar. So like I said, this works better for us because we like the freedom of, not stressing out and not trying to follow every single dollar. But I've also heard a lot of good reviews about people who do the every dollar budget and are able to really stick to it. So again, if that's something that works for you, you would want to take account of everything that you're spending and keep track of all the money that you spend. Now, beyond the miscellaneous category, we also do what we call pocket money, which is basically just an allocation for an allowance for things that you don't want to, that don't necessarily fit in specific categories in the budget, right? So if during the month I went to go get my eyebrows done or go out to brunch with my friends, that's where that money will come out of. I think there are various ways of doing this, but as long as you're being intentional about paying attention to where your money is going, that would help you to try to identify the areas in which you can cut expenditure and ultimately help you to save more than you were saving even before. That's really the road to financial independence, because you'll be saving a little bit more, which you can invest and grow your wealth and ultimately get to a place where, you have the freedom to make choices independent of your income. Now, the last thing that I like to emphasize when I talk about this is money that you give out, right? And for a lot of us, there are a lot of people that depend on us, or there are a lot of causes that we care about that we like to give to. And I think it's really important to also budget for these, right? If you know that you're a person that is going to be giving money out regularly, have that as a category in your budget so that when the time comes, the things that you expect to happen, you're not scrambling for where the money is going to come from. You can simply go to that place where you put it and give it out. There are also a lot of us that plan to do some traveling or have luxury activities that we like to do. If those are expensive or significant costs, it doesn't hurt to also be putting money towards that, so that when the time comes for you to go on those trips or for you to engage in those activities, you're not scrambling to find the money for them. So again, everybody would tailor their budget to their lifestyle, to their life situation. But I think it's really important that if you don't already have one, sit down today and come up with a structure for your spending so that it gives you more control over your life, your finances, and it allows you to save a lot more than you are now and kind of speeds up your track towards getting to your financial goals. Again, as always, if you liked this video, please subscribe if you haven't already, share with your family and friends, and hit the notification button so that you can get reminders when I post the next few videos. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next week.